敵地でのツインズ戦に先発登板をし、8勝目を挙げたドジャースの大谷翔平選手。翌日の日本時間6月26日、各米メディアでは、大谷選手とラッシング捕手について言及をしました。昨日の試合では、大谷選手がマウンド上でダルトン・ラッシング捕手に対し、厳しい表情で言葉をかけるシーンもあり、ファンに衝撃が走っていました。ここからは、その様子を字幕付きでご紹介します。
All right, I want to take you to the Ohtani rushing situation from last night. Are you up to date on it? Did you see the interaction and everything?
I'm up to date because Claudia did a wonderful job of describing it to me. So that's why I'm up to date.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So you have a young catcher who, in my opinion, will be a starting catcher one day, but he's in a backup role. And Will Smith is out of there. Is it fair, the criticism that he's getting from people outside of the organization? Or is it one of those things that only the team knows, and Ohtani coming out and saying something means that it's gotten to DEFCON 6?
Right. The people outside the organization, as you suggested, really don't know. And I don't really care what people may say outside of the group, outside of the circled wagons. I care a lot about what's being said within the circled wagons. First of all, with Shohei, it's hard for me to believe that he's not already working on the solution to this. For me, the solution to this is Shohei, Dalton, in room, pitching coach, manager, sit there, let's talk through this. That's it. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. The Shohei, I even learned to not ask him or tell him what to do during the game. I asked him to walk Matt Olson one time, and he wagged his finger at me in the dugout, but he did go ahead and do it. And then sure enough, I did it later in the game. Then I looked up his numbers against the guy afterwards. It struck him out like 10 out of 14 times. He knew what he was doing. Shohei knows what he's doing. So it makes the catcher's job easier. Just follow him. I would get them in a room. I would talk about it just very matter-of-factly again. And of course, Shohei needs to be in charge of this situation. He's very good at it. So this is another situation. There's been others, the Devers situation recently, all this stuff, Chisholm, with a blow pop in his mouth and on the infield. A lot of these things are just a product of social media. Listen, it's a bad look, bad optics. No, not disagreeing, but they get way more attention than they deserve. This is the kind of stuff when it wasn't as prevalent to be these kind of things being discussed, that stuff would have been handled in the locker room. Chisholm would have been told, listen, brother, never do that again. I never want to see you walk out there like that again. This kid here, listen, if Shohei wants to do something, that's how it's going to be. And if we'll sit down and we'll talk to him, and it's going to be all worked out. And with Devers, of course he was being obstinate, not coming off the field. I don't care what he says. That's what I saw too. These are the kind of things that should, through conversation, go away very quickly. You do not give them any more impetus than they absolutely need. And furthermore, I want people to start watching the game. I watch cutoffs and relays. I watch first to third running. I watch a two-strike approach at the plate. To talk about these superfluous things really bothers me because that's everybody's glommed onto. Talk about the bullpens, talk about the game, but this other stuff is ancillary and should be handled among the group, put away within minutes. You attack it quickly and it goes away.
So the biggest story that came out of last night's game, even though they completed the sweep, even though Shohei Ohtani got a win, it was what happened between Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing. And I've been talking about this the last few weeks, you guys, and I just had a feeling something was off. And you could see it. You could see it slowly starting to happen, but you can also see it in Shohei Ohtani's numbers because while Will Smith was behind the plate and healthy, and he is Shohei Ohtani's guy. And the relationship between the pitcher and catcher, you guys, is so important. I shared this earlier, but when you talk to a pitcher after a great outing, after a game, one of the first things that they will compliment is how great a game that their catcher called. Because you have to be so in sync with the pitches you're throwing. Now with the ABS challenges, like if you think it was a strike or a ball and to call it out in that sense, they have not been on the same page. And you could see Shohei Ohtani getting really frustrated on the mound. And I was like, you know what? Maybe they'll figure it out and get to a place where it gets better. No, it just keeps getting worse, you guys. And I'll just run through Ohtani's ERAs the last 5 outings. Now, with Will Smith, May 27th, 0.82. June 3rd with Will Smith, 0.74. So his ERA was going down. First game with Dalton Rushing, now that Will Smith is on the IL with neck stiffness, 1.14 on June 10th. June 17th, 1.47. June 24th, 1.58. So his ERA was going down with Will Smith. And every outing he's had Dalton Rushing behind the plate, it keeps going up. And why this is such a big deal is because Shohei Ohtani made it very well known at the beginning of the season that he was going for a Cy Young. I think this is the reason that they're also not giving him any time off between outings with the blister, because you got to reach a certain amount of innings if you want to be considered for the Cy Young. Mm-hmm. And again, you look at his numbers. They're not bad. He's winning games with 1 no decision in there on the mound. However, they are not easy and clean wins, and he has been giving up earned runs in those last three starts with Dalton Rushing. And last night we saw it come to a head, and it absolutely exploded. Like, they were not on the same page. Ohtani wanted Dalton to challenge a couple pitches. He didn't. The calls were off. He thought that he was throwing a different pitch. There was a pass ball, runner scored. You could see Dalton get not physically, because it wasn't, I'm trying to, it was, you could see him get upset.
Yes.
Towards Ohtani. And it was like, excuse me, what are you doing?
Showing the whole stadium, it's not my fault, it's his fault.
Not taking responsibility. So much so that Freddie Freeman, Dave Roberts, and even their mental coach,
Brent Walker,
had to sit down with Dalton Rushing in between innings and have a conversation with him.
Dalton Rushing is thinking, I've always been this guy since high school. I'm going to keep doing this because good things keep coming from me acting like this. Once it starts affecting other people and their process, now something has to change. So Dalton Rushing was breaking bats and slamming helmets, and yeah, sometimes he would get side eyes, but for the most part, that doesn't affect anyone else. When you are leaving your pitcher out to dry, and even when something is your fault, you want the world to know and at least make it look like it's not your fault. When you are telling Shohei Ohtani that he's wrong,
no
on a
one's going to be on
challenge,
your side.
That is when the antics have to stop. And based off that quote that we just heard from him, I believe yesterday's post-game was a big step toward the right direction.
He got the message. I'm sure there was a conversation once they got into the locker room and out of the dugout and off the field where they know cameras are watching and everyone's watching. The world is watching because there is an entire broadcast dedicated to Shohei Ohtani in Japan. I'd be curious to see what all the Japanese news outlets are talking about today with Dalton Rushing. But it just feels very ego-centric for him to be acting the way that he is and to not take responsibility. And especially with a player that gives so much respect to the game and so much respect to everyone around him. I mean, he walks up and he bows to the umpire. He thanks, if he accidentally hits a player, apologizes and bows to the player. Ohtani is the most respectful player there is. But when you get in the way of his stats and something that he is trying to obtain, which is a Cy Young, this is where it's hard because, again, I talk about this a lot. Baseball is an individual sport played in a team atmosphere. This is where the team atmosphere comes into play for Shohei Ohtani because he can throw his pitches, he can hit his spots, but if your catcher is not on the same page as you and you throw a strike and it's a pass ball and a runner comes in to score, or you don't challenge a ball that you know is a strike and gets called a ball. There are so many things that get affected by the person that you are throwing to. And we saw firsthand how frustrated Shohei Ohtani will get if you get in the way of ruining his stats and his goal of becoming the top pitcher in the league.
I thought he was going to eat him.
Dude.
When they met on the mound, that is the scariest I have ever seen Shohei Ohtani look. I thought he was just going to bite his face off.
Even after the game, during his post-game interview with Kirsten Watson for Sportsnet LA,
he was still pissed.
He was fuming. And she was asking, they were all asking the right questions. And I I wanted a Japanese speaker with me, like to be like, is the interpreter actually telling us everything that he is saying? Because that felt really angry and a lot longer than what you just told me. And I know he's probably helping him out too, but like, I'm never going to know because I don't speak Japanese.
Right.
Well, I think just based on pedigree, based on production, based on contract, based on back of the baseball card, you're going to defer to Shohei Ohtani, right? Like, I think he has a better sense of what's going on. Now, I will say this, as far as ABS challenges are concerned, the ones that have the most success are catchers.
Yeah.
Okay. And then second are position players. Finally, it's the pitcher. Okay, as far as least amount of success, but the problem is Shohei is both. And I just don't think that they were on the same page tonight. Like, it just looks like they were out of lockstep. Shohei didn't seem like he was very pleased. And Shohei is a very, like, emotional, like, his face is very emotional. He has a lot of different expressions. But I tell you what, I just feel like, again, and this whole situation with Dalton Rushing keeps kind of like following him, you know, with the expressions and the attitude and the antics and all of the things. But you cannot piss off Shohei. And I don't know that this was a piss off Shohei moment, but it was something that you could tell these two were not on the same page, and you can't do that. And again, this is it's an unfortunate situation because typically it would be Will Smith behind the plate catching Shohei, right? Will Smith is not available. He's on the IL. So Dalton Rushing has been catapulted to the number one catcher. And then there's Chucky Robinson. I don't know. He had a good game yesterday.
Yeah.
But the point is, I don't know. It didn't look good. There seems to be a little bit of disconnect between the two of them. But I will say this, there were some coachable moments there. And I even tweeted about this. It's like you see Dalton Rushing in the dugout. Dave Roberts had his arm like around him and was like just talking to him. And this is why I love Dave, because he doesn't get too high or too low about anything.
いかがでしたでしょうか。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーなどを中心に野球情報をお届けしています。この動画が良かったら高評価、チャンネル登録をよろしくお願いいたします。今回も最後までご覧いただきありがとうございました。それではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。